Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we take these massive, really important stories and sort of boil them down, right? We dig in to find the core lessons, the key insights, basically, the stuff you can actually use and remember.
Think of it like getting the highlights, the good bits, without, spending weeks wading through the whole original text yourself.
Exactly. And today, well, you brought us a big one. A real cornerstone of Western lit. Book 1 of Homer's Odyssey.
That's the one. We're going straight to the source material.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to pull out those main takeaways, maybe simplify some of the, older language a bit, and just really chat through what's going on in this first part. Like we're all just sitting around talking about it.
Sounds good.
So for book 1, what are the big things we should really be zoning in on?
Okay, so we'll definitely be looking at the tough situation Odysseus's son, Telemachus, is in. It's pretty grim.
Okay.
And then there's the behavior of these guys, the suitors. It's frankly outrageous. They've basically invaded his home.
Right. The suitors. Heard about them.
Yeah. And then a really crucial moment. The goddess Athena steps in. Big deal.
Ah, divine intervention. Nice.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we'll look at the first steps Telemachus himself takes, trying to change things, trying to find out about his dad.
Got it. Okay, let's dive into Telemachus then. Book 1 really just throws us into his world, and yeah, it sounds pretty chaotic.
It really is. Telemachus is, well, he's unemployed. His father, Odysseus, he's been gone for ages, right? Since the Trojan War ended. And while he's away, his house has just been overrun.
By these suitors you mentioned, not exactly welcome guests, I take it.
Oh, not welcome is putting it mildly. These guys aren't just visiting. They've, moved in, and they are causing serious problems.
Okay, moved in how? What are they actually doing?
Well, they're all trying to marry Odysseus's wife, Penelope. And they've basically commandeered the palace. They're constantly having these loud banquets, just, eating and drinking through Odysseus's entire stockpile. Yeah, acting like they own the place. The text specifically mentions how noisy and demanding they are. And this wasn't just being rude, Back then, hospitality xenia, they called it, was a huge deal, almost sacred.
So by doing this, they're breaking some serious rules.
Absolutely. They're consuming his wealth, disrespecting his home. It's a massive offense against, both human rules and the gods' rules. It really sets up this feeling that something has to give. There's going to be a reckoning.
So Telemachus is just there, living in his own house, surrounded by these entitled freeloaders, feeling totally stuck.
Pretty much, yeah. He's young, remember? And he's facing this whole crowd of powerful, arrogant men. You can imagine he's frustrated, feels like he can't do a thing while they just drain his family's inheritance.
But he does try to say something, doesn't he? I seem to recall him confronting them at some point.
He does try, showing a bit of that Odysseus spirit, maybe. He basically tells the suitors, look, you've had your fun feasting, but it needs to stop. He says they should have a proper meeting, an assembly the next day. And he plans to formally tell them, pack up, go feast somewhere else, use your own money. He even warns them, he says, Zeus might just bring down some punishment if they keep this up.
Bold move for a young guy facing a mob. How does that go over?
Predictably, maybe. They just totally dismiss him, blow him off completely. They're so full of themselves, so disrespectful. They don't take young Telemachus seriously at all.
Ouch.
Yeah, it really highlights how vulnerable he is at this point. You can almost feel his humiliation, can't you? Standing up in your own home and just being laughed at. Must have been crushing.
So that first attempt to assert himself just fizzles out.
Yeah.
And it's right around then when he's feeling totally powerless. That's when the divine steps in, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about Athena showing up.
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting. The gods get involved. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy. She's always been kind of partial to Odysseus and his family. She arrives in Ithaca.
But not like glowing goddess form.
No. She's clever. She comes disguised as Mentes, who's supposedly an old family friend from Taphos. Smart. So Telemachus wouldn't know it's her.
Not at first, no. And this disguise, this intervention, it's not just like a plot thing. It reflects that ancient Greek belief in divine guidance, that the gods could step in, give you a push.
And maybe it highlights mentorship too, even if it's a goddess in disguise.
Exactly. Athena, as Mentes, seeks out Telemachus specifically. Her goal is pretty clear. Light a fire under him, inspire him to go look for news about his father. She sees he's down, knows he needs a nudge.
So what does Mentes actually say? What kind of push does she give?
Well, she kind of plants this idea, this belief, almost like a prophecy, deep in Telemachus's mind. She assures him Odysseus will come back. He will get home no matter the obstacles.
Wow.
Yeah, and she specifically mentions Odysseus's infinite resources, kind of hinting at his famous cleverness, his ability to get out of any scrape.
That must have been huge for Telemachus, a real glimmer of hope he probably hadn't felt.
Oh, absolutely. It plants that seed of possibility. But she doesn't just offer hope, she gives them a concrete plan.
Practical advice too. Yep. She says, look, get a ship, go sail to Pylos, ask old Nestor what he knows, then go to Sparta, ask Menelaus. These guys were major leaders in the war with Odysseus. They might actually have some information.
So not just keep your chin up, but actual steps to take.
Exactly. A tangible starting point. And interestingly, she also comments on how much Telemachus resembles Odysseus.
Like a little hint about his own potential.
Could be. Like, you've got his spirit in you, kid. Then, just like that, Mentes leaves. Quite suddenly.
And what's the effect on Telemachus? Does it work?
Big time. The text says he feels this newfound determination. It's like that divine pep talk really flipped a switch. He goes from just being miserable to actually wanting to do something.
And we see that pretty fast, right? Next morning, he calls that assembly he threatened the suitors with.
He does, which is a big step, you know? He's going public, trying to rally the community against these guys, taking charge.
And doesn't someone actually back him up this time? An older guy?
Yes, Egyptius, an elder, well-respected in Ithaca. He speaks up, basically saying, yeah, Telemachus called this meeting because he's the one suffering the most here. His father's gone, these suitors are wrecking the place. It gives Telemachus's plea more weight.
So Telemachus lays it all out, tells the whole assembly about the suitors.
Yep. He repeats how they're behaving, how rude they are, how they're burning through his inheritance, and then he announces his plan. He's going to find news of Odysseus, just like Mentes Athena suggested.
But the suitors, they're not just going to roll over, are they? I remember Antinous, one of the main ones, has a pretty nasty reply.
Oh, yeah. Antinous is maybe the worst of them. Super arrogant. He stands up and basically blames Penelope for everything. Says she's the one dragging things out, not choosing a husband.
What? How does he figure that?
He brings up her weaving trick. You know the one?
Ah, the shroud. For Laertes, Odysseus' dad.
Exactly. Penelope told the suitors she couldn't remarry until she finished weaving this burial shroud for her father-in-law, so she'd weave all day.
And unravel it at night.
Right.
Brilliant stall tactic.
Totally. But Antinous twists it, makes it sound like she's just being manipulative, leading them on. He even tells Telemachus, just send your mom back to her dad's house. Let him marry her off.
Wow. Blaming the victim, basically. How does Telemachus react to that?
He doesn't back down this time. He replies really defiantly. He asserts his authority at his house and warns them again. There could be consequences for their actions. It's a definite step up in confidence.
Good for him. Is Antinous the only suitor who speaks?
Well, interestingly, no. Another guy, Mentor, who's kind of associated with the suitors, but maybe an older, wiser figure, actually speaks up for Telemachus a bit. He criticizes the other suitors' behavior.
So maybe not all the suitors are totally united in their awfulness.
Maybe some cracks showing, yeah. Or at least some unease.
Okay, so after this assembly, Telemachus actually starts planning the trip, right? Getting ready to go.
That's right. He starts putting Athena's advice into action. Practical steps. He needs a ship. He needs supplies.
What kind of supplies?
The text mentions him asking his old nurse, Euryclea, she's a key figure too, to get good wine ready in jars and barley packed into leather sacks. Also, like 20 measures of ground barley meal. Proper provisions for a sea journey.
He's serious about this.
Definitely. And just as he's getting all this sorted, Athena shows up again.
Different disguise this time.
Yep. Now she appears as Mentor, the same guy who just spoke up for him in the assembly.
Okay, so she's really guiding him closely here.
Absolutely. Reinforcing that divine support. And Mentor gives him more practical advice for the journey, reassures him again, tells him the gods are with him, encourages him, saying he has the wisdom he needs.
So boosted by this, supplies gathered. He's almost ready.
Almost. The last piece in book 1 is him actually gathering a crew for the ship and getting the vessel ready to sail. This is the culmination of his first real action, setting off on this quest to find his father.
Okay, so let's wrap up book 1. What are the absolute key takeaways here?
Well, the big picture for book 1 is really scene setting. You know, we see just how bad things are for Telemachus with these awful suitors. That's the problem.
Right.
Then the catalyst, Athena's intervention. That's the spark, giving him hope, a plan.
The push he needed.
Exactly. And finally, the response. Telemachus taking those first crucial steps, preparing the journey, finding his courage. It sets everything else in motion.
And it really frames why Odysseus needs to get back so badly, doesn't it? It's not just about reclaiming a palace. It's about rescuing his son and his home from, well, destruction.
Precisely. Book 1 shows us exactly what's at stake, makes Odysseus's return feel incredibly urgent.
So here's something to maybe chew on after this deep dive. Think about that role of divine intervention. How much of Telemachus stepping up is, his own character growing, and how much is purely down to Athena basically holding his hand?
That's a great question. The mix of human agency and divine help.
Yeah. And as he starts this journey, what hints does Book 1 give us about the bigger themes coming up in the Odyssey? Things like family loyalty, what it means to be a good host versus a bad one.
Right. Hospitality.
And justice.
Yeah.
The idea that the suitors will eventually have to pay for what they're doing. Just some things to keep in the back of your mind.
Definitely. Book 1 really just opens the door to this huge, amazing story. Hopefully this deep dive gave everyone a clearer picture of where it all kicks off.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep digging into those big stories.